Hey folks, welcome back to another episode of Reclaiming My Time. I'm Jason Pye, joined by Nathan Leamer. Nathan, it's good seeing you.
It's so good to see you. By the way, I'm watching ourselves on Facebook Live right now.
That's right. We are broadcasting on Facebook Live. For those of you who are not familiar with our Facebook page, it's facebook.com/reclaiming my time pod or podcast. I don't remember off the top of my head, but this is the first time we're doing that. I do it on one of my other podcasts, and I'm starting to get used to it. It actually saves me time in post. So, but sorry, we've been gone for a couple of weeks. Nathan and I were both sick, 2 weeks ago?
I was not sick. You were sick.
You said you were feeling under the weather.
I was feeling busy. I had a lot going on.
I was sick.
Yes.
I had the world's worst sinus infection. And then last week I had an ear infection that followed the sinus infection. And I'm still a little stuffy in the right ear. So, but thanks to the wonders of modern medicine, I got some steroid and a new antibiotic yesterday, and I am on the mend. So it seems.
Did you take ivermectin to help you out with it?
You're not the first person who's made that joke, asshole. So yeah, but no, I did not. No, I did not. And I tested negative for COVID. I did go have a rapid test done. Just I want to make sure that wasn't a problem. So, but I'm feeling, like I said, I'm feeling better. But I'm pretty sure that my sinus infection came from the 3-day music experience in Birmingham, Alabama at Furnace Fest. That was the end of September 24th, 25th, and 26th. Saw a ton of good bands I hadn't seen. One band in particular I hadn't seen since I was 17. Another one I hadn't seen since I was 19, whose singer recognized me from Facebook, by the way, which was kind of cool.
So he's a boomer.
He's a boomer. Yeah. So among the bands I saw Silent Planet, who wasn't that great. I saw a little bit of Few Left Standing, Terror, Stavesacre, Zayo, and Under Oath. Under Oath, by the way, got a bone to pick. I got a bone to pick with them. We can
preach it.
We can discuss that in a second. On Saturday, saw a little bit of Evergreen Terrace, Shai Hulud, Living Sacrifice, The Bled, Stretch Armstrong, and Glassjaw. Glassjaw was amazing. On Sunday, saw Face to Face, Hot Water Music, The Juliana Theory, and The Get Up Kids. So I picked my bone with two of these bands in particular. We'll start with Juliana Theory. I've seen bands before that hadn't played in a long time, and then they play for the first time in years, and it sounds like a cover band.
One band, a cover band of themselves,
right? One band that sounds like that is Finch. I don't know if you remember Finch from like the early aughts.
Yeah,
Finch,
yeah.
When I saw them play for the first time, they had been on a break for like 5, 6, 7 years, and I saw them in 2013 at the up in DC. I'm trying to think of the name of what's the venue up in Silver Spring? What's it called?
Fillmore.
Yeah. Saw them at the Fillmore.
Yeah.
Sound like a cover band. And then I saw them again in Atlanta later that year, a year after, and they still sounded like a cover band. The Juliana Theory sounded like karaoke.
Really?
It was like Brett Detter who's the singer of the Juliana Theory, getting up and singing karaoke to his own songs. He was not on key. The music wasn't great. The mix was bad. It was awful. They were awful. They were terrible.
Now, Juliana Theory was like, they've been around for a while.
Yeah.
And they were like, really well guarded as artists, and they kind of like skipped genres, right? I mean, they weren't just and they're also from Pennsylvania, as I remember. But they're not just like hard rock, they're not hardcore, they're kind of emo, they're not. What are they exactly?
They were largely classified as emo after their first two records. So right. There's Understand This Is a Dream, and then Emotion Is Dead. And they actually titled Emotion Is Dead because of the emo label. While writing a bunch of emo songs, there was couple records they put out after that. They went more pop rock,
right,
than anything else. Maybe even a hint of classic rock involved or prog rock. But all they played was basically I think they played Emotion Was Dead from front to back. The problem was just awful. I mean, it was one of the worst concert performances, if not the worst concert performance I have ever seen from a band. I was horribly disappointed. With Under Oath, I don't have any particular beef with Under Oath's musical ability. I don't. They are a good band. They play great. They play great live. I've seen them, I think, 3 times now live. My issue with them was they rose to popularity on a Christian record label
Yeah, that's right. They were kind of a religious group, right?
They never they distanced themselves from the Christian band thing. It's like, look, we're a band of Christians. It doesn't mean
right. Every good Christian musician should separate themselves from CCM. That's
right.
fair.
No, I don't have a problem with with a band going mainstream. And I say this as someone who is an atheist, but
yeah.
The issue I have is it feels like they perpetrated a farce. It's like, right, we're Christians. Oh, we're atheists now, and we gained all of our popularity by exploiting Christian kids into buying our music when we were on a Christian record label, and now we're a bunch of atheists and we hate God. And like that's basically that's basically the direction they go. And like I find it like horribly dishonest.
They actually call that in our circles the ex-evangelical thing.
Yeah, ex-evangelical.
Yeah. And I'm like, guys, stop it, just stop. I can't.
Yeah, but no, I mean, special shout out to a couple of different bands. Zayo was absolutely phenomenal. Who also has distanced themselves from Christian music. Stavesacre didn't. So this is a band I have not seen since I was 17 years old. They weren't particularly tight. They hadn't played in 13 years, I think. 12 or 13 years. But it was a good set and I enjoyed it. And it took me back to my teenage years. Living Sacrifice, absolutely like melt your face metal. It was so good.
Oh, cool.
It was so good. Glassjaw played their best record, Worship and Tribute, from front to back. And that was an experience. Stretch Armstrong, good South Carolina hardcore. They were amazing. Face to Face was good. Hot Water Music gets the best set of the weekend. They just killed it. They're one of my favorite bands. They're just amazing. And then the Get Up Kids closed the festival, the stage. They're the last band I saw. They were the closer at the Heart Support stage. Played a lot of oldies, a lot of new stuff, and they were just on point as usual. But had a great time. Just wish I hadn't gotten a sinus infection as a result of it.
I'm glad you survived. I saw a band play, Six Gun Sal. I don't really know much about them other than from the West Coast, and they're rock alt rock band. They performed at the Anthem
nice.
last week because they were the band playing in support of Taxpayers Protection Alliance 10th year gala, which I also happen to be the host of. Since David and Patrick and I think TPA is required to listen to this podcast, they actually might appreciate this. As a board member, I have some perks, and one of them is to get my ratings up. Speaking of, if you like this podcast, you should rate, review, and subscribe at all the places that podcasts can be found. Even the evil people at Apple play this on their app store for the time being until they feel like we're not good enough for them. But we're also on YouTube. You should check us out there. Smash that button and then go on Facebook and while it's still here and like it and follow along. But our guys, David and Patrick and others, they had a cool party, and it was different than most galas in that it wasn't a traditional speech. It was kind of a roast. It was comedic. I'll be honest, I was the funniest guy there.
If you do say so yourself.
I mean, that's what people were saying. But then also, like, they had a rock band play. This is someone a band that David's really close with and friends with, and they performed, and they actually were really good. I was into it. I jumped on stage and was dancing with the band, not with the band, but they like real close by. I was like into it in my suit, having a great time. The opposite of what you look like, and it was a good time. But for me, gala season is back. We talked about this a couple weeks ago. As much as I like to demur and denigrate galas, I will say it is nice to see people in person again. Yeah. And that was awesome. I saw some of your former colleagues, people who used to work at Freedom Works like you, Sarah Anderson, who used to work with you. I got to see her. She
actually FaceTimed me.
Oh, wow.
Well, actually, it wasn't her. It was Katie Bailey, who's a legislative director on the Senate side, who bumped into Sarah, and she's like, "Where's Jason?" So they FaceTimed me, and I was actually in Phoenix, Arizona last week. And so I'm standing there with a guitar in my hand, and I get this FaceTime from Katie, who never FaceTimes me. Sarah usually does, but not Katie. But and then Dan Savickas pops up he's like, "Aren't you supposed to be here?" So I got a little shit from Dan, who also works at Taxpayers Protection Alliance, for not being there.
Well, it was a good event. We had fun. It was good to see people. Actually, I talked about that in the monologue a little bit, about just like, hey, it's just good to see you all in person. So that was really cool.
Did you plug Reclaiming My Time?
Not really. No.
So not really means no.
No. Although David did, which I appreciated.
Did he really?
Yeah. I had it on the list of things to say, but I was really worried about time, and I was like keeping it quick, and it just like floated out of my mind. I was like, I was too excited about the Seb Gorka video that I had made for David that I just forgot all about it. So, anyway, if you had to be there to enjoy that one,
happy birthday, Taxpayers Protection Alliance. Some of my favorite people around town.
And I think, it's important to note that, like, if you run a think tank in DC or an advocacy organization, 501c3, 501c4, 501c6, I don't really care. If you run an organization in DC and you want to shout out on our podcast for hundreds, if not thousands of listeners in the DC area, DMV area and beyond, let me know. Always happy to talk about whatever 3-letter organization you're a part of. Even if I would never sign on to a coalition letter with you, I might, for a price, be willing to say nice things about your organization.
We can be bought. We can be bought.
That is my entire goal. I literally moved to DC to be bought.
Serious face. We can be bought.
Yes. Gold, fiat money, crypto. I'm all in.
You know what money can't buy though?
Love.
A National League East pennant.
It's true. You've been waiting on this one for a while.
I have
this for a while.
This is the only reason we're doing the podcast tonight.
Yeah,
I actually am running a temperature of 103 degrees. I might actually be dead. I'm kidding.
That's all right. I love it. I love it.
I could not wait one more week to rub this in. I just want to go on record and say that my Atlanta Braves kicked your Philadelphia Phillies asses, swept you guys, won the pennant. And I haven't checked the score tonight, but
it's
I know
4-4 in the 8th inning.
All right, we're 2 games up. We're 1 game up on the Brewers in the wild card. And if all goes according to plan, we will be heading to the National League Championship in short time.
I am of the opinion that it would be the NL East was the worst division by team wins of any of the divisions represented in the current Major League Baseball tournaments. It would make me feel a little better if your Braves, who barely snuck in to the playoffs, actually like won a series. I think that would be a really great step in the right direction, especially for an organization that doesn't actually like winning championships. So. Or a city that knows how to win championships. Just to bring up our main man, New England Patriots, really showed you guys a couple years ago, and I'm never gonna forget it.
This isn't on the agenda for tonight, but I do want to note that the Georgia Bulldogs are currently ranked number 1 in the nation, which has not really fared well for us in recent years. The last time the national championship was 2017. The Bulldogs have been to the national championship 3 times while I've been alive. They've won 1 of those. The Braves, I lost count of how many World Series they've been to, but they've only won 1 of those. But thanks to the Crimson Tide, Alabama Crimson Tide losing to the Texas A&M Aggies, Georgia is now number 1. We got Kentucky this weekend. So one of my friends, Holly Harris, has been giving me a little bit of shit. She is shit talking. And Holly, if you're listening, I'm saying that because you called me today and you sang the Kentucky Fight song as soon as you said hello. So kind of interesting to see how Georgia sports teams are faring right now. But if you're a Georgia sports fan, if you're from Georgia or from the Southeast, you know our pain. We constantly we're used to being let down here in the Peach State. So, but yes, Nathan, I have been waiting 2 weeks to talk about that.
I'm glad you got that out of your system. I'm really glad you got that.
But I mean, like, it just sucks. I mean, like, you guys lost to us in basketball. You guys lost to us in baseball. The Eagles beat the Falcons to open the football season, but the Falcons suck.
We did. No, that's it is. These are all true statements. And it's something that I'm working through. I just found out that Ben Simmons is no longer having a holdout with the Sixers. So, we're going through a lot of process. But my Eagles did pull out a win on Sunday in spite of themselves against the Carolina Panthers, and we're going to host Tom Brady and Tampa Bay on Thursday night, and I'm looking forward to betting correctly on the outcome of the game and winning some money off of my team's inability to win on Thursday.
By the way, do you know who beat the Georgia Bulldogs for the national championship in 1982?
No.
Penn State.
Oh, Penn State. That's right.
Penn State. Yep.
I did know that.
Yeah.
Who our starting quarterback went out in the second quarter when we were up by 2 touchdowns and we lost. So It's been a rough week.
Womp,
But
womp.
I will say I have the game on right now. I don't know if I can show it for broadcast rules, but I do have the Atlanta Braves game on, so I'll keep an eye on the score. I hope you guys do win that and pull that out. Wisconsin's only good at football. I don't think they should be allowed to play any other sport. So this is fine with me.
So now you got me interested. So I'm turning it on.
Now, can I tell you about a real sport
Go ahead.
that I've been really into this fall?
Go ahead.
U10 girls soccer is way better than Premier League, and I don't care what loser Zoomer, Zennials, say when they get up at crack ass, dawn of time or whatever they say now these days to go watch like freaking Liverpool play some game. Like, who cares about that? I'm telling you, there's nothing like taking your kids and your wife to watch your eldest daughter and her team, the Pink Tornadoes, take it all out on the field. That girl is rocking it. She's an incredible defender. She also plays midfield. I'm very proud of her. They are 2-2 this year. Both their losses were by 1 goal each. They just basically gave up a lead because the coach stupidly put in the not so good defenders in the second half when they should have put the good. I mean, look, I got thoughts on the coach's decisions here, but he's a nice guy, good friend. So I'm not going to rail him too hard on the air in front of our millions of followers. But I just got to say, Premier League's awesome, but Premier League sucks. But U10 girls soccer is amazing. I'm a huge fan of it. We go every week to watch our kids. I take my daughter to soccer practice twice a week. It is awesome. I sit there with a couple podcasts and just chill out and watch her play, and she's learning, and it's a lot of fun. I am so excited to be in this stage of my dad life.
I mean, hold on, Nathan.
Okay,
we just took the lead.
Josh Hader just gave up a touchdown, home run.
Freddie Freeman.
To Freddie Freeman. Wow.
Goes deep in the bottom of the 8th.
I think you guys are going to win this thing.
But we have the worst closer in baseball, Will Smith. So
you do have a bad bullpen, so it isn't over, but that's pretty huge.
Especially our closer. Will Smith has blown some big games this year. So
have you picked up both? Actually, all the major sports that I watch are doing this. They just did this. The new camera angles that they're using for the coverage, we just saw that
one
run,
where
they're following the hitter, and as he runs the bases, and again there's different angles. They do the same thing in football where they're using the camera angle to get right behind the players after touchdown stuff. You get the scope of what it looks like on the field to be the player with all those fans behind them, which is just awesome. So they just did it. I thought of that.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. But to your points of soccer though, I mean, I actually played soccer 8th, 9th, and 10th grade.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know if we talked about this before. It was mainly to condition for baseball, because baseball always started in the spring. So
right.
That was the main reason. I enjoyed playing soccer. I played defense, so I was a sweeper. Well, I was a goalie my first year, and I played sweeper my last 2 years. Yeah. I
mean, I love the camaraderie of the girls in the team. They all wear like hair braids, the same type of hair stuff in their hair. The mom and the dad bring a bunch of food and drinks for them. I get my beach chair. I sit up front, right along the line.
That's cool.
And I don't yell anything negative. There's this jerk off dad who's on the team, whose kids on the team, who yells constantly at his daughter in a very demeaning way that I just don't get. I try to stay encouraging and positive. I am known to jump out of my chair and stand with my hands in the air when the ref misses a call, but I don't say anything. I just stare.
Is this a church league, or is it a
no? It's the Gunston
public recreation.
Public. Yeah, this is the local club. This local club league. You work your way up through Gunston, and then you eventually hopefully go play in the pros. I guess I don't know.
No, I mean it's the thing because I played rec baseball from 7 to 14, and then I played high school. Well, I mean I guess high school baseball, and I remember rec baseball more so than the high school baseball, the parents being the biggest assholes.
Yeah, I mean, first off, that has been an anomaly so far, but that was actually something that was really concerning to me getting into this, was that growing up, my experience playing sports didn't always have the best parents around. who weren't always the most positive in engagement. I'm not saying this about my dad specifically, but he may have been one of them. But like a lot of the people who were just there's just like an aggressiveness and just like a toxicity that permeated, Twin Valley High School and middle school and the local leagues. I just didn't want to be that dad. And that's actually one of the reasons I didn't coach my daughter either, because I just wanted to be a dad who could just sit and enjoy and watch and watch these kids get better. And like there are dads and moms who just like, guys, like leave your kid alone. There's one guy who stands behind his daughter when she's playing goalie and is like literally talking to her at the entire time. And I'm like, I'm not sure what this is accomplishing.
It's distracting.
It is.
It's distracting.
It is. So it's anyway. I could go on about that, but
no, it aggravates me. Like the only thing I could say, like, because based on what you're saying, you have this one guy, this one parent. But I remember when I was playing, like, like don't expect your kids to don't live vicariously through your kids. Let your kids go out there and have fun.
Now, I will say one thing I do is I bring a Bluetooth speaker to the games and play like jock jams like before the game and during halftime. And I just like sit and play it. And like a lot of people are just staring at me like, oh, he's that guy. But I'm like, to me, that's a better approach. That's the dad I want to be. The guy who's playing like jock jams or the, like a pump up the kids. They have no idea why we're playing this music. And I'm just like rocking out to it.
We're probably going to get censored for this, but I'm going to do it anyway.
We've been censored before. We fought YouTube and we won. So bring it on, punks.
Hold on, let's see what happens here.
In the alphabet.
You ready?
Yeah.
Hold on a second. Where is it at? Play, damn it.
Yeah. This is next.
Yeah, this is the Bouncing Souls.
Yes.
They have a song called Olay.
Yes. I'm familiar with that one. That's next.
Hopefully
that is next.
Hopefully we don't get pulled off Facebook, Spotify, or.
I think you have a couple seconds. I think you have a couple seconds. You're fine.
Yeah, that went about 14. So yeah.
We're fine. Don't think about it. Don't admit that we did 14 seconds. More like 12.
It was like 3.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think he played. I don't remember it. It was someone else who's playing it just inadvertently. It's fair use.
Fair use.
But yeah, so I play the music. I get the kids pumped up. My daughter's embarrassed, but it's like a good embarrassment. It's like, oh, my dad is doing this. But then also after the games, after something interesting happens, I interview her and do a press conference at our house. And we put on Instagram stories. So that's really cute. And I'm actually doing that because I want her to learn how to describe what she sees in the game and to save it for posterity. But like, so my brother and his wife are coming on Saturday. And then next week, my parents are coming to watch. My in-laws came last week. So like this has become like our thing every Saturday. We're just like all in as a family. The coach's kids have like signs. They do dances for the team. It's an awesome hour and a half, man. I'm telling you, it's great.
That's cool, man.
If you didn't feel like a creeper and you were allowed anywhere near a high school these days, I would invite you to join.
I was gonna ask where my invite was, but you just insulted me, so fuck you.
Well, I don't know if you're allowed to be within 100 yards of a middle school. So I mean, if you are, then you're more than welcome to come. I didn't want to bring it up on the air. You forced my hand.
Yes, I am allowed. Thank you very much.
Good. So the probation's over.
Dick. So had something cool happen, not last week, but the week before. The Equal Act passed the House of Representatives by a vote of 361 to 66.
And this means that your crack conviction is no longer on the books. Is that right? Yours specifically. It's still in the books.
No, so even if that were true, it would still be on the books because the Senate has to take up the bill, and we don't know when the Senate is going to take up the bill. If the Senate is going to take up the bill, we still got a long road to go, but we ended up having I think 50 something 49 50 51 co-sponsors to the bill, almost evenly divided between Republicans and Democrats. We had some really good Republicans on the bill. Louis Gohmert actually was one of the co-sponsors and presented the bill during the debate. Yeah, so Louis Gohmert was really good on the issue. 361. I think a lot of us were guessing how many votes we had. I played it conservative. I said we had 300 to 325. I said probably on the higher end of that. There was one of my colleagues who said we had as many as 350. We ended up getting 361. So that's a good one. We had the entire delegations from Utah, including the Republicans from Utah, Iowa, and a couple other states. It was a good vote. Got it out of the way. Got some other bills I'm working on right now, but that one is one that is going to continue coming up as we push for more criminal justice reform in the current Congress. So
that's awesome. I saw some Twitter activity when that happened. I know you and your team are working hard on it, so that's great. And you just got to get it through the Senate, man. And obviously, as you know, right now, any of these initiatives, particularly, bad ones coming from the White House, they can't even get them through the Congress right now.
No, I mean, they can't even get, the Build Back Better stuff. I mean, that's stalling amongst Democrats, no less. There's, Manchin and Sinema are getting all the blame on the Senate side, but there's more than a few House Democrats who are opposed to it. But, here we are bringing a bill like this to the floor. That's a criminal justice reform, a sentencing reform bill, and it attracts, about 2/3 of the House Republican Conference and every single Democrat. So that's the kind of thing you want to see. That's good. That's a good example of bipartisanship where there isn't much in that town.
Well, if I remember right, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, when it comes to these criminal justice conversations, there are really good faith discussions between certain leaders on both sides of the aisle who are having these conversations and trying to get a point. How can I get my party to support this? And there's a lot of back and forth about whether, the Cory Booker, Tim Scott's conversations and what went forth. I think Tim Scott's an honest broker and a good man. So I imagine he was discussing in good faith. I'm not sure how it broke down, but when you see these issues around the infrastructure package or the reconciliation or the debt ceiling, you're not seeing any of that. You're seeing a party debating among themselves whether they want to be progressives and social, follow the AOC approach to everything, or if they want to be more pragmatic and moderate, as guys like Manchin and Tester and Sinema and others are pushing, because their states are different, constituent base and have different interests and different needs.
Well, that's the thing people don't understand about Manchin and Sinema. Manchin represents West Virginia. He's a senator from West Virginia. The other senator from West Virginia is a Republican. That is a state that went 25 points for Trump.
Yes.
Went for Trump by 25 points. You can't. No other Democrat could get elected in West Virginia. In Arizona, yes, Sinema. Arizona has trending purple, but as our friend John Gabriel has said, Arizona is mostly a contrarian state. Kyrsten Sinema is very, very mindful of that, and she's playing the moderate. She's playing the contrarian.
And she's always been a bit of a maverick in policymaking for the past several years. And I've actually always been a huge fan of her on the House on a whole host of surveillance, privacy issues, and civil liberty issues. She's been phenomenal and shown her maverick streak. I'm using maverick because of the late John McCain narrative. But you're right. I mean, Flake and so many other people who have been representatives there have had to show an independent streak that, as you said, is representative of their state. And which is intriguing to me is that you have that negotiation happening, and then you have Republicans who are the opposition party, both the House and the Senate, who they also are the minority in both places. They have there's a slim majority, and then also you're trying to force through this reconciliation package, and then the Democrats are blaming Republicans for not helping them on debt ceiling. And I'm like, guys, you can't get your robust agenda through. So why should the Republicans bail you out, especially whenever they're bailing you out on the debt ceiling, whenever you're earmarking trillions of new dollars that you're going to spend? It is so ridiculous. Like, if you want to be bipartisan and you want a bipartisan agenda, then you need to bring all sides of the party into the conversation. And Manchin's basically a Republican, so why don't you work with other people in that space, other Republicans in that party? But no, you're trying to appease AOC in a far left agenda, which I think is going to hurt you in 2022, to be honest.
So a couple of things I'll note real fast, and because since you brought up the debt limit, and for those of you who don't currently subscribe, I have a Substack, this dueprocess.substack.com, and it's a mostly weekly newsletter that I do on what's happening in Congress. And not this past week's, but a couple of weeks ago, I wrote about the debt ceiling discussion, and there's so the reason Democrats were objecting to using budget, because you could do this, you could settle this, and it would take less than 2 weeks just by amending the budget resolution that started the reconciliation process for the Build Back Better Act. You could amend that, and you could put in instructions to increase the debt limit by a specified dollar amount. What you can't do, and what Chuck Schumer wanted, was to suspend the debt limit for a specified period of time that violates the rules of reconciliation, and you need 60 votes to do it. You have to get past the filibuster to do it. And they kept saying, reconciliations, it's complicated, it's obscure, it could take weeks to do. Folks, it would have taken less than 2 weeks to do it. But again, you'd have to do it in a way that you're increasing it by a specified dollar amount. And it was a massive waste of time for him to sit there and say they couldn't do it. And at the end of the day, and then Schumer goes and gives the speech. Braves are going to the National League Championship Series as of just now. So what Schumer has massively screwed up, because he went to the floor when they right after they got cloture on this thing, right after they got 60, I think they got 61 votes to advance the bill. Schumer went to the floor and basically read Republicans the Riot Act. So McConnell the next day fired off a letter to President Biden and said, "You will not get my help again." That debt limit increase that they just did by $480 billion gets us through early December, maybe beginning of next year. You're going to need 60 votes. You're going to have to do it through reconciliation. That's the only way they're going to be able to get it done. And Schumer, maybe he wanted the fight. I don't know. But it was a massive screw up on his part, and it looks like they're going to be paying the price. And the fortune, I don't know where you are on the debt limit debate. I'm of the mind that the debt limit has to be increased, whether I like it or not, because of the potential shock it could cause, not just to our economy, but worldwide. And when I talk about this potential shock, I'm not talking about simply defaulting on our debt. If we default on debt, it affects all of us, because interest rates will rise. That means the cost of borrowing. If you and I want to go get a car loan or buy a new house, whatever the case may be, our interest rates would go up. And then the cost of servicing the debt would go up too, which means larger deficits. That's something that you have to take in consideration with approaching this. Republicans should have brokered a deal similar to the Budget Control Act, as long as they actually, enforced it. But they didn't do that. They just basically said, we're not going to do this. And that, I don't know. I'm frustrated by the whole way the whole debate turned out, but I'm mostly looking back and blaming the Democrats for playing politics with it.
No, look, you're the opposition party. You have no obligation to vote yes, especially to you're not using the reconciliation process because you want to use it for a huge expansion of government and new spending and policy agendas that I just don't support at all. So why would I want my team to help you out on that? So that's the part that I have consternation with. But I also think it is time for, we've had conversations about spending and debt now on this podcast because people would not want to listen because no one likes to talk about this stuff. But the reason is Congress should be rethinking this mechanism. This is just so stupid. There has to be an openness to rethink this approach. And just because it's in law doesn't mean it can't be rethought and see if there's a better approach. I'm not saying I have one, but I'm just this game is boring. I'm tired of it. I was tired of it back in 2013. I was tired of it whenever, I was working on Capitol Hill dealing with this stuff. It's boring. It's annoying. And people try to use it as leverage for things. And I just don't I'm saying is maybe you can use it for leverage, but I just feel like there's got to be better ways of doing it.
You go back. I think the way I disagree with you, and the reason I disagree with you is if you have the right circumstances, going back to 2011 and the passage of the Budget Control Act, which suspended the debt limit in kind of a unique way. It was basically Congress, the Treasury raised the debt limit, and then the Congress would have to basically vote to reject it, and they of course never voted to reject it. The issue I have here is that if you have the right people who are negotiating, in 2011 you had John Boehner, Joe Biden, and Barack Obama negotiating behind the scenes, and we got the Budget Control Act as a result of that. Now, the Budget Control Act wasn't perfect. It was a cleaver that cut discretionary spending by $1.2 trillion over 10 years. And it didn't have an enforcement mechanism. Congress came back in every couple of years and busted those spending caps.
So
my point to this is that it did cut the rate of growth of spending.
Reclaim my time, gentlemen from Georgia. I don't disagree with you that 10 years ago there was one time where this worked out in a way that was somewhat productive. But as anyone who's reading John Boehner's incredible book, which was loaned to me by you, sir, will note that John Boehner is proud of that and that negotiation. I think that was a very successful negotiation. But if you remember, many of our conservative friends and allies said that wasn't enough, and they wanted to like kill the hostage. And they wanted so much more and called John Boehner a sellout and a crony and, the establishment, all that stuff back then because he didn't go far enough. And then they spent the next 10 years really kind of undermining, any effort to come up with pragmatic, reform, particularly at certain incidents in 2013 around the shutdown. I'm not going to go into it, but I'm just saying, I'm just saying that, like, yes, you are correct. 10 years ago, there was an incident where that happened. But guess what? I then worked for a boss who thought that was the worst thing in the world and said that he was a sellout for doing it and we should have demanded more. And like, I'm just saying, like, you are right that was an opportunity. But like in this town, we are so incapable of critical thinking in any way.
Oh, yeah.
Form. And like our like, members of Congress would routinely lose games of Risk to 8-year-olds from Iowa. These people are dumb when it comes to this stuff. They don't know how to play game theory. They don't know strategery. They don't know how to think critically. I mean, if they were General Patton, they couldn't make it across and they couldn't roll tanks a mile down the road, let alone through Germany. They have no ability to think strategically. So, like, for me, I don't think they have the ability to think strategically enough about how to use the debt limit in a productive way to make these type of games.
I actually think in McConnell's, because I was, so when I was at FreedomWorks, we opposed any increase in spending caps. Now I think FreedomWorks opposed the Budget Control Act, if I recall correctly. And I don't remember the specific reason. I think it had to do specifically with the debt limit, but every time Congress went to bust the spending caps, we opposed it. But I know people were more interested in saying, some of the conservative groups out there were more interested in opposing this particular debt limit increase because McConnell, they say McConnell sold out. They say McConnell, he blinked, he backed down. I actually think it was kind of a good strategic move because the debt limit increase took the focus, or the debt limit discussion took the focus off of how Democrats are imploding on the Build Back Better Act. And now all the stories as of this evening, the stories are going to shift back to Democrats are in disarray on this whole thing because they can't get their stuff together. So, I actually think it was a pretty smart move on McConnell's part, but, again, we're going to have to deal with this again in another month and a half, and we're going to be right back at the starting point.
But I think also, again, that goes back to, first off, McConnell is a legend, and people who don't appreciate him are idiots. But like, also on top of that, or probably mouth breathers, actually, is how you would describe it.
One thing I'll say real fast is that I was very critical of Boehner when he was speaker, and I'll tell you, looking back on it, I regret it.
Yeah, I think that's what my point is. I'm trying to get at is that, I think it's actually the brilliance of the show House of Cards, showing the Frank Underwood character in the first season, is that like he is this mastermind among a bunch of morons who just can't think critically or strategically. My reservations with the show aside, but like that's actually an interesting point in that first season.
First season was really good,
and I think that showed that kind of like if you could think, one step ahead of everyone else, you have a shot of running this town. And I think to a degree that there's a truth in there, and that is especially true when it comes to legislative fights. And we're seeing that the Democrats fall into that trap right now with the infrastructure package, where they're trying to spread this sheet across too much of a too big of a bed, and every time they put the one end, it flips over on the other side, and they can't figure that out. And it's because they just don't. I don't think they have the strategic thinking to figure out how to actually get that get their party in line. And I think that's like a real shortcoming in DC. And I think it plays out with the debt ceiling. And that's, again, my point of debt ceiling is that like either we need more people think of productive ways to build off the 2011 deal, which was called an agreement to do nothing by a certain congressman. But like, there are like other ways of thinking about this and trying to take advantage of opportunities to reduce spending, to reduce the debt, cut spending, change the tax code, et cetera. But I just feel like we choose not to do that when the opportunity arises.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you, but I just don't want to get rid of the current mechanism. That's just my 2 cents. But
all I was interested is like thinking what alternatives are out there. That's all.
So I was texting with some friends today who live in Virginia. It's a brother and sister who are dear friends of mine, including my best friend Emily from Richmond, who recently had a TIA. She's a big fan of the show. I'm glad she's doing better. But
she's the one.
She's the one. But we were texting today about the Virginia governor's race, and I saw there was an internal poll that came out from RGA that showed Youngkin up by I think 3 points, and then there's another public that's you have to subtract it's within the margin of error. You have to subtract 6 points because it's internal, right. So he's probably down 3, but still inside the margin of error.
Yeah.
That said, there's another poll that came out this evening from, I don't remember which polling firm. I'm trying to pull it back up real fast. The Hill had the story on it. It was a CBS News YouGov poll showing that Youngkin is down 3 with a poll that has a 4.1% margin of error. Youngkin is leading McAuliffe among likely independent voters, 53-44. He leads on the economy by 53%, or with 53%, I should say. McAuliffe is more trusted on COVID and vaccine mandates. 54% of voters think that McAuliffe would do a better job on vaccine mandates, but Youngkin gets 45% of voters who believe that he would do more to create jobs. And what we're seeing in the race right now is McAuliffe doesn't want to go anywhere near Biden. Although, and Obama's coming down to stump for him, I think, this weekend. Jill Biden, I think, is also coming down. There's a whole host of other politicians, including Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms, who is wildly unpopular here. I don't know why you would have her stump for you in Virginia. Stacey Abrams, who's a former Georgia gubernatorial candidate. So he's got he's calling in a lot of, big names to come in and stump for him with 3 weeks left to go until the election, 3 weeks from today. Youngkin, I don't know what he's up to, but it certainly seems that the message he's been pushing has been working. That said, I'm wondering if he's peaking too early. But you are a Virginia voter. I am not. So I am curious to get your reaction of what's going on up there in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Virginia, my friend, is for lovers, which we are not.
First off, Virginia is a beautiful state. I mean, like, it is. The swamp aside, when you get out to rural Virginia, I did a bike race a week or so ago. Out in rural Virginia, and goodness gracious, out past Woodstock, past 81. It's just gorgeous. And I follow way too many Instagram accounts about people who travel around Virginia and explore these cool places that I want to desperately go check out. It's gorgeous. It's a gorgeous state. And now that I'm a homeowner here, I really do appreciate it and appreciate the beauty of the state and the history and all that. So that aside, it's kind of cool to actually be a Virginia homeowner voting this time.
You're still a fucking transplant, dude.
Yeah, I know. But the fact is, the Republican Party of Virginia doesn't know that because they keep on sending me a lot of mailers, and I feel loved. I feel loved that people are trying to court my vote, and I think that it's nice that they think that I'm not going to vote for the Republican. But let me tell you this: there has been a narrative shift focused entirely on education. And it has become a number one issue. You saw in the debate 2 weeks ago where McAuliffe said that he didn't believe parents should be anywhere near having any control over the education of their kids. Parents should be involved in controlling what their kids are exposed to in education. As a guy who chose to homeschool my kids last year, because of the dereliction of duty exposed by the state of Virginia when it comes to public education during COVID, and then now switch my kids to a private school, I find that deeply offensive that he would suggest that I am not, capable or should be allowed to have any say in my kids' education. So, like, way to go, McAuliffe. If I ever thought about voting for you, that's over. But I'm picking up a vibe from a lot of parents and a lot of people in this area about that concern, which is basically that they feel that their kids' needs aren't being met, that they feel, the conversations about race, socioeconomics, and other factors being brought into the schools in a way that, look, we've talked about before. And I don't mean to be hyperbolic about that stuff, but there's things that people are concerned about, and it's becoming concerning, and they don't feel like their concerns are being adjudicated in a way that makes sense to them. And it is not, in my mind, something that is just felt by one particular demographic, but it is spread across many different demographics. And it comes up in conversations on the soccer field. It comes up in conversations in the church small group, and it comes up in the way people are in thinking about things. So do I think it's enough for Youngkin to win? I don't know. I mean, Virginia is a purple blue state. So, you're going to need a lot of people not to turn out for Youngkin to win. And McAuliffe to continue to say dumb things about parental choice, for that to happen. But it is interesting that that's the focus has been on school choice. I actually saw a lot of mailers about school choice and about religious freedom and things like that. And so me as a conservative, theologically orthodox Protestant dad, I felt seen, which was nice to feel seen. But I don't know. But the other problem is, are there enough families that actually matter? I mean, how many voters are actual parents? There's a lot of people in this kind of state who are not parents or don't have kids don't have kids school age and are in many ways oblivious to what's going on, because they just see it described in SNL skits, in headlines in MSNBC, and they don't actually, their kids aren't being picked up by the school school bus and being a part of these conversations and thinking about it. And I don't know how many of those parents who just go about their day are thinking about this stuff either. Like maybe they're like, well, whatever,
Well, I've
problems.
I've heard from talking to our friend Emily in Richmond that down where she lives, that the school buses are not getting there on time in the mornings. The kids are getting to school late. School buses are not running in the afternoons on time. Her daughter's getting home 45 minutes after she's supposed to, things like that. Now, I don't know how much control governor or the governor has over something like that, right. But I know it's part of that broader conversation on education. That said, I'll also note that this was the education, if I recall correctly, was a key to Ron DeSantis's victory in Florida.
Yeah, that's true.
Back in 2018, he ran on school choice, and he actually got a lot of Black women voters to cross over, and people who may not have ordinarily voted for him. He really emphasized that in predominantly Black communities, and it worked. And he won. And whether he wins this year or not, I don't know. But it certainly seems that is a winning issue as long as you put it out there and actually advertise it, not just talk about it as a campaign plank. You actually have to sell it to people.
Well, I think it does highlight the fact that our education system really did not handle COVID very well. And we saw so many people, I think there's 10% of kids or 15% of kids who are now homeschooled now, which is like a record number compared to where it was before. It's probably 10%, somewhere in there. But it was whatever it was double it was before. I think it was 5%. Now it's 10 or 12. So like it's a huge number in that way. A lot of people going to private school and stuff. And so like I think people are really thinking about this in a new way. And I'll tell you this, like it hits the pocketbook. It hits the checkbook in a way that you don't realize when we try to do school choice in a state like Virginia that doesn't have charter schools readily available. It is expensive. It is a luxury item that, by the way, Terry McAuliffe enjoys sending his kids to Potomac School, which he chose to do. He chose to do that for his kids, but then he doesn't think we can. So like, again, it just speaks to that point that like, if you're not in the upper echelon that you can afford a private school, which every lobbyist in DC who lives in Virginia and McLean does, you realize how hard it is to actually have that school choice. And so, regardless of what happens out of this election, and I'm not putting money on Youngkin at this point, just because the numbers, I hope he wins, but like, I just don't know. But like, I do hope that there is a further energy that transcends the CRT debates that we're seeing or the masking conversations around school kids, but actually looks at how do we give parents the choice they need to give better education for the kids. And you're seeing that in New York City. I mean, they got rid of the whole merit program up in New York. The magnet school program for the testing of kids. Like you're just like, there's a lot of people frustrated about that we're not allowing advanced placement programs or tracking for kids who can be successful. That's hitting everyone.
One thing people have to remember, no matter what state you live in or Commonwealth, there are 4 Commonwealths in the country.
Love it, baby.
But no matter what state you live in, 8 cents of the dollar spent at the federal level is for education, or I guess every dollar that goes into to education is like 8 cents comes from the federal government. Anything your state and local government matter so much more when it comes to educating your kids. The state sets a lot of the curriculum. The local government is responsible for executing it, in addition to logistical and lunch and things like that, and the actual education part of it. Everything, like a lot, these decisions are made by your General Assembly, your education secretaries, your governors, and your local school boards. If you're not paying attention to these things and you have a kid, you're doing your child a disservice and yourself a disservice. You've got to pay attention to what's happening at the state and local level.
But if you go to the school board meeting, Attorney General Merrick Garland's going to open up an independent investigation to see whether you're a domestic terrorist or not, which is actually what's happening right now.
I will say, because we actually talked about that recently with some friends, that seems, it is an overreach without question.
Amen.
Without question. That said, some of the threats and things like that I've seen videos of are concerning. Does it require federal intervention? No, it does not.
Well, that's my question, is like there are local and state laws. If that was the case, if state and local officials are being threatened, there are a lot of state laws in states like Michigan and Virginia and Pennsylvania, I know for a fact, that could be adjudicated these things. But like also, they existed. They've been going on for a long. These things have been happening for a while. They've been crazy Karens running around yelling at school board and Chads. Don't forget the crazy Chads. We're yelling at school boards all the time. Like, this is not new. It's about an issue that certain political party doesn't like it being talked about. Right. And, whenever you ask questions about it or you raise concerns, but like all these parents are seeing it in their classrooms. They are experiencing in their kids' classrooms. And I think that we need to engage them. We should be encouraging civic engagement, not saying, if you come to this, you're going to be suspected of domestic terrorist.
I don't disagree with you. I don't disagree with you at all. It is. I mean, I get, because we've talked about CRT before. I mean, it's not something that I agree with. I agree with elements of it, but I don't agree with because look, and I don't know a ton about CRT. I haven't sat and read it, and I got a buddy of mine, Andy.
But you're not a law student.
I'm also not. I also don't have kids.
Right.
But I got a buddy of mine, Andy, from Georgia, who watches the podcast, and he's going to text me later and tell me. I hope he tells me I got this right, because he studied CRT. He has kids. He's been telling me about CRT, but long before it became a national issue. Yeah. But one of the things they talk about is it's sort of like logic and reason, data, empirical evidence don't matter. It's all about experiences and things like that. And that's not. I mean, I do think experiences matter, but I mean, I think you also have to have to be logical and be reasoned and understand and look at data to make informed decisions. Otherwise, you're just shooting from the hip, and you're going to make bad policy decisions.
As my guy Camille Foster likes to talk about, he's got concern with racial essentialism. He doesn't know what's being taught in schools as CRT or something else, but the essentialism issues is one that he has concern with. I think that's always a helpful framing for me, because I'm sure if I just tried to describe the CRT word, I would describe it inappropriately, and someone somewhere would be like, "Oh, Nathan, you don't know what you're talking about. You should not be allowed to go to school board meetings." So I'll just be quiet on that one. That's why I went to private school. Let me tell you, man, kids are having a blast. They're killing it. Kill with the soccer. We're getting to October. Your Braves won. They're into the next what is it, the
NLCS.
NLCS. So you got the Dodgers or the Giants.
Yeah, the Giants are leading. Actually, that came on right after. The Giants are leading that series 2-1. They're in the top of the second. Dodgers are up 1-0. We lost to the Dodgers last year.
Well, good luck, my man. Look, Not all is lost in this country. We still got baseball, we still got football,
and college football in Georgia once again, number 1 in the nation. But we got some tough games ahead. We got Kentucky, then Florida, I think, and then Tennessee, I think, are our next 3 opponents. Tennessee's been doing better lately. Kentucky beat Florida, but I'm a little concerned about our stretch. But if we play lockdown defense like we did against Auburn, we'll be good. We beat Auburn 32-10 in Auburn.
I'm up $50 this past week. So I memean, sports betting has changed my weekends, dude. It is so much. I used to make fun. John Schweppe from American Principal Project used to tell me all the time he's into that. I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. And now that it's legal here, I'm like all into it, and I'm like spending pocket money, and I've been winning, which is good, but I'm making small bets. Growing a little bit, but it's been fun.
I'm surprised considering his employer that he doesn't want to ban fun.
It is. Maybe I shouldn't have revealed that crutch of his. Oh well.
I mean, I don't know if you heard my eyes rolling from all the way down here.
Oh, I could see those ball bearings just roll.
So you should definitely bet on Georgia to win this weekend, but definitely take the under. Okay. And then unless they surprise me, which is always the case. But do you know how many touchdowns Georgia's given up this year?
It's like a handful. It's like three, right?
Like 2 or 3. Yeah. Like we've only given up, I think, 33 points all season. Like we're playing like insanely good football right now, and I'm not used to this. Like I'm not used to us being this good, and our defense is maybe one of the best. Yeah, we've given up 33 points. We've forced 239, and we are currently 6-0, number 1 in the nation. So if you're watching, pull for the Bulldogs this weekend. Sorry, Holly, don't hate me. Did we miss anything, Mr. Lemur?
I think we're good, my man. I appreciate seeing you. Glad to hear you're back, and hopefully we'll be back next week for round 2.
We should be back next week. I'll be in DC next week, the Imperial City. So I'll be ready to go though. So that we're out of time, folks. Make sure you download, like, subscribe on all the various channels: Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, YouTube, Facebook. Check us out. Keep us help us grow the numbers of listeners from dozens to hundreds of dozens. Hundreds of dozens sounds like a good number. Dozens of hundreds.
That would be even bigger.
That'd be even bigger. What did though? I don't know. I don't know. At this point, I'm just dragging this out as long as I can. Have a good rest of your week. We'll see you next week. Peace out.
Bye.